Hello and welcome to the podcast of the Prison Officers Association, Britain's largest professional trade union for staff working in prisons and correctional centres, public and private mental health service trust providers and immigration services, with nearly 35,000 members. Engaging younger members in the union and keeping them active is an essential part of the POA's strategy, and the Young Members Consultative Committee is a key body for delivering that objective. In this episode, 3 members of the committee share their hopes and experiences and explain why young members are very much the present as well as the future of the POA. First, I asked Deputy General Secretary Mick Pimblett about the origins and structure of the Young Members Consultative Committee.
In 2023, the National Executive Committee determined that actually we need a separate representation for our young members. As a result of that, a POA circular was put out where we asked for expressions of interest from our young members to see whether they would like to be on the consultative committee. And as a result of that, we now have a Young Members Consultative Committee who look after the interests of our young members.
What was the drivers behind that decision from the executive? Why is it important to have this dedicated forum?
I think basically if we want a strong future of the union, we believe that we have to invest in the people who are probably going to shape it. Young workers face many challenges now, and they're different from those from other more experienced colleagues. So, for example, they deal with lower pay, fewer opportunities, housing insecurity, student debt, and so on. So they do suffer a hell of a lot more different problems than what other groups of staff do. So we thought that the Young Members Consultative Committee would give us a forum where these issues could be pushed and put at the centre of what we're trying to achieve.
It's fairly early days, even though the initial decision dates back, 2 or 3 years now. But what are your initial views about how the YMCC is working and about its members? What's impressed you most so far?
Well, as you said, it was set up in 2023, but actually because of certain set of circumstances, the meetings have been pretty rare. So it's been decided that from now on, we will reinvigorate this committee and try and move forward. On the initial first couple of meetings that we have had, one of the things that I've been impressed by is their energy, the initiatives that they come up with. And let's not forget, these are all volunteers, but it just showed that they do care, not just about young members, they care about all members. And yeah, I'd say that the most thing that I've been impressed by is their energy and creativity, yeah.
I mean, establishing the consultative committee as a going concern is a significant step in itself, but how do you hope the committee will develop in the months or years ahead?
I think it's about giving them a voice and giving them some confidence. I believe that when young members have their own platform, they're more likely to speak up, they become involved and influence change. I'd also like to see moving forward the Young Members Committee developing the skills that they already have and hopefully in the future becoming union leaders and taking up senior roles within the trade union.
Listeners, in this episode, we're looking particularly at the Young Members Consultative Committee, and I'm delighted to say we've got 3 members of the committee with us on the podcast. I'll let them introduce themselves so you know who's in the room, as it were. Jordan, would you like to start?
Yep, my name's Jordan Coombs. I'm the branch chair for the Hull branch of the POA.
And Tyler?
Yeah, my name's Tyler Tierney. I'm the branch sec at HMP Cookenwood.
And last but not least, Lewis.
And I'm Lewis Nicholson, and I'm the branch secretary at HMP Hull.
And one of the things that strikes me straight away, gents, is that, of course, is you're not only members of the Young Members Consultative Committee, you are also senior branch officers. How did you all get active in the union to start with? What led you to seek membership of the Young Members Cohort? Who'd like to go first? Go on, Tyler. Yeah.
So I got involved with it off the back of having a chat with Joe Simpson, the late Joe Simpson, at a conference quite a few years back now. We had initially spoke about setting up a young workers sort of committee or co-op group sort of thing. And it then quite quickly grew legs, and it was case, and actually what do we want that to be? What do we want that to do? We've had a few meetings obviously prior to the current inception, but it never really found its place. It never really slotted in as such. Following obviously the last meeting we had with Joe at the time, he said, we want to change it up a little bit and look at a different sort of program. Sadly, obviously, Joe passed away, and then Mick Pimblett ended up taking up the helm. We reinvigorated it, and got it. I think we had our first meeting. Recently in Leeds, and we've gone from there really. But I think it was more about just trying to raise awareness of the issues that young members can face. I know obviously not a lot of issues are restricted to certain groups. However, there are issues that young members tend to face when they join the job. We know in the news at the moment we're getting a lot of judgment saying that should we be hiring 18-year-olds straight out of school? And that comes with its own sort of challenges, but also that comes with a wider understanding from staff that we're the issue. And actually, yes, sometimes there are individuals that aren't supposed to be in the job that are 18, but also there's other individuals that shouldn't be in the job, and they're all different. But it's kind of just raising awareness around that age isn't just what defines us. It's a case of you can join the prison service, immigration services, or secure health and whatnot at any age, and you can still provide a decent job.
It's not everyone who can walk in like newly minted, as it were, at quite a young age and take on the full range of responsibilities, at least not without support and mentoring. And I wondered if that support and mentoring when people start in the job is something that you as young members felt was a particularly live issue at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. From my point of view, I think if you look more outwards of the national picture for trade union membership, some of the latest stats between 23 and 24, there was a decline of 38,000 union members. And in 2024, only 22% of UK employees were in a trade union, and that's the lowest on record since 1995. Now, I think there's a lot of talk about when you look at young members saying that they're the future, but in reality, they're the present. There are members currently entering and part of this workforce. With all the data and things around morale, staff not feeling valued, of a high turnover of staff, the young workers now entering a system that's already under strain. And hopefully, us on the Young Members Consultative Committee can really make sure that they've got a voice. Because ultimately, yes, they're the present, they're not just the future, but they will be the future of the POA. And if we don't address that and help support these members, then we risk the long-term ability of the POA to protect members.
Lewis, when you look back on your experience when you were new into the service, do you think things have changed for the better since then? Or are the things that were not in place when you thought they should have been still an issue?
When I first joined the service, I was in quite a fortunate position. I'm going into my 17th year this year, and I had a lot of experienced staff around me who had done 20 to 30 years in the service. So I was in quite a fortunate position, but we've got more and more new staff coming in, younger staff now, who have not got that experience to lean on because the experienced staff are leaving in droves, unfortunately. So now you've got some staff coming through the door now that are getting mentored by staff who have been in the service less than 12 months. We're in a crazy situation nationally. And I think it's only going to get worse for young members. So I'm glad this committee has come forward and formed because it's about raising awareness like these issues nationally.
Jordan, I think you were right when you said it's about the future of the union, but it's also about the future of the service as well, isn't it? Given the churn, given the exodus of staff with longer service, given the fact that new entrants churn more quickly than older, more established ones.
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, echoing what Lewis said, similar when I joined the service, there was a lot of old heads with experience. But what comes with that experience as well is the confidence to speak out. So if something is going against their own health and safety, or there's issues in the workplace, those experienced officers and staff in establishments and other settings would speak up about that. I think ultimately what we need to do as a consultative committee going forward is really empower young members within the POA and let them know their rights and what they can stand up for, and help bring a bit of solidarity amongst all of them. Because at the minute, as Lewis alluded to, they are being led often at times with people with not much experience. And if they're being led by people who aren't going to speak up and speak out, they're in real danger.
Is there a view about how you can make progress towards having a more self-confident, a more assertive, a more knowledgeable cohort of young officers?
I think it's just about raising awareness of what your rights and what we've got to protect us. But the amount of times, again, as a branch rep, and it doesn't matter what age the member is, they always come to the local committee itself. Is it right that they do this? Is it right that they've cancelled my annual leave on this day? Is it right that this is happening? And it's saying, actually, these are the rights that you have as a member. But you can say that yourself. You don't necessarily need a committee member to be like saying that for you. And it's about showing people that it is right to have a voice. And actually, we've got the Young Members Committee to try and show young members that you haven't got to be long in the tooth to be able to know your rights and be able to know what you've got to say to protect yourself or to potentially fight for your job in some cases. But what tends to happen 9 times out of 10 is people just aren't aware of the levels of protection, aren't aware of policy, aren't aware of certain procedures. Not always, but we've seen it where managers hoodwink people into signing a sick warning without actually following the process. And then they come back to, oh, what does that mean for me then? I've already signed a level 1. Does that mean I need to speak to my union rep now? Oh, hold on a minute, I've already signed it. And it's 9 times out of 10, that's what I say. I think a lot of the issues are income, but it's that naivety, isn't it, thinking that, unfortunately, there are some great managers across the service, but also there are some managers that haven't necessarily got our members' best interests at heart.
Do you think there's a link between the confidence of members, the knowledge that members have, and overall morale in the service and in the branch as well?
Young officers, at the minute, say in the prison setting, they're entering the service during one of the most challenging periods in prison history. But I've been in the service 10 years now. Even in those short 10 years, I've seen such a change. But that's exactly why. But their voices need to be heard now as part of their national decision making going forward. They're part of this. They've entered this world. And it's our job as union to protect them and to make sure their voices are heard in our full democratic process, whether that's help guiding them on how to write conference motions to take forward from their branches. And ultimately, just giving them a voice. For me, that's what I view as my main role on this Young Members Consultative Committee, is to give young members a voice and help them to get that confidence.
One of the things, I mean, you alluded to it just there, George, it's a dangerous workplace. There's no question. If anything, it's getting more dangerous rather than less, you could say, as staffing shortages continue to run at an unacceptably high rate. Do you feel that the skills of diffusing situations or dealing with what can sometimes be a very unpredictable client base, if I can you call the people that you look after in that way, do you think that's a particular area that needs attention for younger members?
There's all sorts of different examples that you can give. Jordan touched on it earlier. We've got more and more new staff coming to us with all sorts of different issues where they need that clarity and guidance now. Like I alluded to earlier, you've not got that experience to fall onto where they would be able to give you that knowledge. And like now, a lot of new staff are just thrown in at the deep end and they're just more or less expected to say, there you go, get on with it. And it's like I touched on earlier, it's only going to snowball and get bigger and bigger, this issue. So it really does need nipping in the bud now. But if we can help raise awareness on that, the better, really.
Like we're talking about, it's learning from experience, isn't it? It's when, I know we need a broad section of society to work in our way and across all sorts of ages. But when you're joining a job, and like I say, you look at the OSGs, you join the job and there's no entry course. It's just a case of you come in, you learn from the person in front of you, and then you're expected to just get on with it. You do that as an officer. Again, the POA course for officers has been walked down, and it's now, at one point it was 6 weeks basic training, and that was it. And that's gone from when you were doing a 13-week training course, coming back to staff that knew what they were doing. They'd been in the service a long time, and now it's a case of that time just got so much shorter. The experience you learn from is non-existent, and it's bad habits teach bad habits. And then you end up with that world of, oh, who do I look to next? And again, you've got people that are in senior role that only have a very short time in the service. And that's not saying that they're not necessarily good at the job they do, but that still has an impact. It's still the understandings of the data they run into the prison and what it takes to be in any type of environment for a set period of time when you haven't done it for so long. Do you know what I mean? It's really strange.
Absolutely. And I suppose actually one of the great things about the consultative committee is that although the precise circumstances will vary from establishment to establishment and region to region, actually there's enough common ground. There's more common ground than there's different ground on these issues. And actually bringing a group of young members, young activists together must be a real act of solidarity and support in dealing with some really difficult issues.
I think it's something we've already seen. Like we've set up our own little WhatsApp chat, and that's got all the Young Members Consultative Committee on it. And we've already seen in there, and on Teams in work as well, we've already seen in there people just raising an issue to say, oh, this is what's happened today. And then 4 or 5 of us are in the chat going, oh, have you done this? Have you spoke to this person? Has that been arranged? And then it's the case of going, oh, actually, I didn't realise, I forgot about that. And sometimes it's just drawing on the support from your colleagues that are in the same type of position and have also potentially been through it more recently than others and actually been able to help each other push through certain issues.
Turnover, of course, has increased amongst people who are coming in, finding the job's not for them or finding the job's been very different as they've been sold it. But do you yourselves have a fear that pay and progression is not moving in the right way or in the right way fast enough to offset this kind of trend of increasing turnover?
It certainly plays one of the major parts in it. Unfortunately, the leaving, the exit interviews and the figures that are produced and stats off the back of that, the employer chooses not to really ask the right questions, I feel, when people are leaving. I've known colleagues leave to go to the border force, to the police, other youth justice sectors, supermarkets, all sorts of places, all to all different new walks of life. And every time they've left, they've been on more money. Ultimately, we're governed and we've got the prison service peer review body. And to be fair to them, I think last round or two, we've really looked at the POA's evidence strongly. And whilst the pay hasn't been restored to the levels that it should be, I think they are starting to make an impact. However, our pay has been deteriorated through inflation over a number of years to the point where we just simply haven't kept pace. And young members that are now joining into this environment receive the violence, receive the self-harm, the constant pressure, the lack of resourcing. And you take a look around and then you see a job further down the road as a local supermarket, take Ali as a manager there, where you're putting the skills that you're using as a prison officer, dealing with people in conflict situations and maybe having those supportive conversations, what you'd be doing as a manager at Aldi with your staff members there. The only difference is that Aldi got 80 grand a year with an Audi company car as well to go along with it. Then people look around and think, why am I staying? Why am I coming into the workplace every day to face this? And if young members feel that way, but at least now with the Young Members Committee, they can make their voices heard. So they can raise it to us in all, we're covering now all regions of the country. The circle's gone out with people's local leads for it. They can bring it to us and we can discuss it. Because people as well, when they join the service, and young members in particular, they're at the beginning of their career often. The world's their oyster in terms of what do I want to see in my life in 5, 10, 15 years? I come into the prison service on, say, 30 grand a year. I go, okay, this is a decent wage for some areas of the country, but what's my progression look like? And then I look across the road and I look at a few of my friends who are in the Aldis, in the different places, in the border force, and suddenly their starting salaries jumping to 35, 40 grand after a couple of years. And you think, I'm not keeping pace with them long term. This isn't going to suit me. So I'll give it a year, build up a bit of experience, and I'll be off and I'll use the skills and experience I've gained to sail through my police or border force interview.
We see it quite a lot. Obviously, we're right close to Manston. We have a lot of border force, staff leaving border force. We've had a lot of staff leaving for different youth justice careers under false promises and whatnot. I think Jordan touched on a very good point is we get people that are like brand new into their working life. And it's then the case of you've got people that are completely brand new to trade unions and what this all means and what we do and how we do it. And it's as much as it's a learning of a new job, it's also a learning of a trade union education. But yeah, it's an introduction into trade unionism and what that means for us as young members, but also be them as prison staff. But I say that the attrition rate are massive. And when you work in estates where violent levels are through the roof and a lot of staff don't feel supported, they don't feel like they're being listened to, you end up with a service of, oh, do you remember John that used to work here? Oh yeah, he's gone now, he's a border force and he's earning this much money. Oh, actually, I might look into that. It's that rotating door.
Yeah, and then you get into a vicious cycle, don't you? That actually, that morale goes down even further and faster than it would otherwise. Yeah. Lewis, are you very much aware of the committee not only defending the rights and protection of young members who are employed, but actually keeping the idea of trade unionism fresh and alive to people who may not have experienced that before?
Yeah, I know Jordan touched on it earlier. We've got loads of new staff entering the service now that have never been part of a trade union. So thankfully, when we have new staff joining, certainly H&P Hull, all those staff assign a time in their induction pack when they first start to speak with me and Jordan about the trade union, about what the POA is about, what we do at Hull, and what we do nationally around the country as well, fighting for employees' rights, workplace rights, and what we do in terms of investigations if they're ever involved in that situation. So, and thankfully that when they always leave our meetings, when we give that induction about the POA, they always, thankfully, join the POA because they realise how much they're going to need it potentially in the future. And it's not just about going in with somebody on an investigation, it's about all the other stuff like the legal side of it, how it protects the family if they're away on holiday or if they're on the road, all that legal package that comes with it, all the little perks that come with POA membership. The amount of times that we do these talks and they don't realise what comes with trade unions. So it's good that we've got that uptake of when people do join the POA, and long may it continue, I say.
Although the job is hard and young members have got particular challenges, they feel more acutely than, say, older members. The creation, getting the YMCC up and running must be a tremendous boost. You must walk into those meetings thinking, yeah, we're cooking on gas now, as it were. Or am I being too optimistic?
No, do you know what? I walked into the Leeds office and everyone started arriving, and it was actually a collective of staff that were all there, energised, ready to talk about the issues that we face as young members. It was really positive to see. So I think we've had a few years where we've been trying to get it off its feet, and now we're in a stronger position we have been. Obviously, we raised the age for young members last year, didn't we, to 35, and that's obviously enabled people that are still in the job to be joining that committee and kind of talking to us and getting involved. And I think that's massive.
If you were to roll the calendar forward by, say, a year or maybe two, how would you hope the perception of young members, young activists in the union will have changed both within the union and within the service?
I think for me, I'd like to see, as a result of the Young Members Committee, I want to see more conference motions coming in from branches, specifically from young members. I know that a lot of conference motions come from branches and from branch committees specifically, rather than from the shop floor per se themselves. I want that engagement from the younger workforce to come forward in committee meetings and think, this is an issue that's affecting me. I want you as my committee to go and fight it on my behalf. And I want you to fight it at conference so that the NEC then get their mandate to go and fight it with the government or the powers that be in the employee relations team. So I want to empower our young members from across the country, because ultimately they are facing these challenges, as are people of all demographics, but specifically people when they're new, when they join the service. We need to keep a hold of them. We need to retain them. And if we can empower them to have their voice heard and see real effective change, that gets them bought into the trade union movement more. When they see consequences coming from the actions that they've taken and real change coming forward, they buy in more, they stick around in the job longer, and hopefully we produce the next branch secretaries and branch chairs and NEC members across the country. Because when you look at the NEC now, there is a wealth of experience across the NEC. However, they're not getting any younger day by day. Eventually, the time is going to come as retirements come forward and things like that, where people will need to step up. And if that's an experienced branch chair, then going into a role of an NEC, we need to make sure that we're filling the line for people can step up into these branch chair positions across the country.
I think I've got nothing else to add, really. I think Jordan just summed it up perfectly there, but I think where we're all at.
I'll tell you something else, actually, that occurs to me as we're chatting, and you mentioned it, Tyler, and that is what a legacy and a tribute to Joe Simpson to see the Young Members CC up and running and really, really pushing the boundaries on behalf of younger members. I'm sure he's up there looking down with a smile on his face when he looks your way.
If there's one point I could add when touching on Joe Simpson and his involvement in terms of setting all of this up, for me, one of the key things that I'm always trying to drum into our young members is the importance of pensions. Joe would be happy about one thing that we could do as a Young Members Consultative Committee. It would be to drill into young members the importance and knowledge around pensions and getting paid into it early, making sure people aren't coming out of it and fighting for a lower retirement age.
Yeah,
If
for
we can
sure.
do that, then I think Jed would be proud.
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right. Jordan, Lewis, Tyler, thank you very much indeed for sharing your views and your thoughts and your hopes for the future of the Young Members Consultative Committee. You can hear from that the union's future is in safe hands. But if you want to find out more about the Young Members Consultative Committee, or even possibly to get involved in their work, Mick can offer some advice.
Yeah, so currently we have a full committee, and each member of the Young Members Consultative Committee have responsibility for an area. So we have North West, North East, Midlands and so on, also up in Scotland. But obviously, due to the rules that relate to young members, once they reach the grand old age of 35, they are no longer eligible to be on the Young Members Committee. So obviously, the people who are on that committee will change on a regular basis. There will be a POA circular which will go out, which will ask for expressions of interest. But yeah, people should just keep their eye out for that in the future.
My thanks to Tyler, Lewis, Jordan and Mick. You can find out more about all the work the POA does on behalf of members of all ages by visiting poauk.org.uk, where there is also information on how to join the union should you not already be a member. Thank you for listening. I hope you have enjoyed what you have heard and will join us for the next episode of the POA podcast. Thank you and goodbye.